Coeur d'Alene's rapid population growth has significantly impacted traffic and is testing the limits of our current transportation infrastructure. How will you address issues like traffic congestion and adequate infrastructure improvements resulting from our city's unprecedented growth? And we start with Rob Knutson, running for seat 5. Rob.
Thank you for giving me that one. We've heard over the past year or so, with all of the annexations and new growth, traffic has been discussed at some of these meetings. We've already heard testimony, basically, that talks about how, for example, the roundabout at Celtice and Atlas is already failing during peak hours. There's no budget to widen Atlas Road. And even if there were budget to widen the road, it would only go to 3 lanes, and that center lane is a turn lane. So we're already stressed or experiencing those stresses of increased traffic. And it is an issue, and it does play into the quality of life that I think a lot of native Idahoans and even newcomers really want to see put to abeyance. There has to be some relief. So I think the alternative, unfortunately, is just having a hard conversation about priorities in the city and what road projects go through. And really, is whatever project that gets proposed, is it a final solution? The roundabouts are a really neat idea until they're not a neat idea anymore. And that type of approach needs to be thought out well in advance. So that's something that needs to be paid attention to in the future. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll have Roger Garlock running for seat 5. Roger?
Yeah, thank you. The growth issue is not a year old. The growth issue has come up for years, well over a decade, as I said, ever since I moved here. So it's a little confusing to me that individuals who've been on the council for that entire time haven't thought to take a look at impact fees until 2023. This is something that should have been looked at a while ago. The writing has been on the wall, especially for Coeur d'Alene. As you have our surrounding cities grabbing up land and in a race to take out the prairie and eventually connect. Coeur d'Alene's been landlocked. So they're stuck with that stoplight annexations. And the growth is going quicker than the infrastructure planning. So whether it's schools, water, traffic, those are some major infrastructure things that we need to focus on for our community. As a 9-to-5 working individual, I punch a clock every day. I know what it's like, especially north of I-90. Traffic is pretty tough. When you're in those school lines and you're driving to work, you got to time it. And we don't have a flow to traffic. We don't have the space to widen the roads. There needs to be some communication with all the different services that manage our traffic at this point, because we have 3 different cycles and different ways that traffic is flowing through the city. But there's a lot of infrastructure that really needs to be taken a look at, and quicker growth is not going to be that solution to that infrastructure. We need to focus on growth that is beneficial to the citizens that are living here today, the current residents, not our future residents who may be moving here from other locations, and they're always welcome. You're never going to stop growth, but we can't grow faster than our infrastructure can keep up with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll have Dan English again. Dan is the incumbent running for seat 5. Dan?
Sure. Well, I guess the first thing I would, my first impression is that all of the council people and city workers, we go through the same intersections. We don't have a special speed line for us. So I live in Coeur d'Alene Place, so I'm back and forth to downtown Coeur d'Alene multiple times a day. We have done some things to improve that with, on Northwest Boulevard, we had to really work to, get control of some signals from the ITD and state, but people who I think can recognize some things that, little things that make big improvements, like what they call the passive yellow blinking lights that now, instead of just being a red, you've got a blinking yellow arrow and if nobody's there, you can go. But it is one of the things got pointed out in some of our recent hearings is that, a mile of road way back when, it's like $1 million to put in a mile of road, and now it's just, tens of millions. And so it's a tough thing. But I think that we're doing, and we do put a lot of money into our road system. Of course, you can't just build new ones. You've got to take care of the old ones. So every year we have the, overlay and different things, and our staff has gotten creative with how we can, do it for the most effective price. And that's happening today at the Planning Commission meeting. One of the things they wanted input on was, there's been talk of a bypass over by the, out of the hospital district. And I see my time's up, so thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Dan. Next, we will have Dan Gookin, who's also the incumbent running in seat 3.
Thank you, Hilo. So, impact fees. I've been pushing for updates to impact fees for 10 years, and I could have really used some help with some public comments from some of you during that time if you really wanted to see impact fees increased so that we can pay for stuff. I actually learned today that we tried an impact fee study the city did way back in like 2016, 2017, but it was withheld from council. And I'm very disappointed about that. And this is the kind of thing I do for you, is when this kind of stuff is kept from the public that pays for it, I throw a fit, and we all should. KMPO offered about 2 years ago, and it was right in the middle of COVID, a plan that would have brought $800 million of traffic improvement in the because they extra dollars per car for registration. And that was sad. So we have density, and that's what we're talking about really with the traffic. And I ensure that every time there is an upzone in the city of Coeur d'Alene, I ask questions about traffic. Now, they're always going to say that the street can handle the traffic, but that's the issue, is it? The issue is, how long are the lines going to get at the grocery store or the bank? How long is it going to take you to see a doctor? How long are you going to have to spend waiting at the DMV? These are quality of life issues that I bring up every time we do an increase in density, and it's just ignored by the rest of council. It's sad. Not all the time. I mean, I know I've gotten some supportive votes on a few things where density was increased with no parking, and that's a problem we have downtown right now. We need to fix that. I would like support to fix that. Show up to the meetings. Tell us what you think. This is how we're going to have to deal with it. It's going to take some pain because these people want to build more houses, but we got to do it in a sane way. This is why I voted against the comp plan, because the comp plan doesn't really handle density the way you should. We need to put it where there's infrastructure, where the roads handle it. And we also need to worry about commercial development because we need access to those facilities. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Next, we'll have Clark Brittain.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's the premise of the question, how are we going to deal with the traffic? The real question is the density. When we start doing high density property development and putting in 1,600 units in Riverstone when it's zoned for 400 and that kind of thing that the Northwest Property Owners Association helps to highlight and bring to the fore. So the idea that, we're going to keep accommodating unsustainable growth in population, and therefore we better study how we're going to deal with that first. I think the real answer is let's stick to the realization that if we don't maintain some coherent strategy around preventing this high density strategy for developers and people that want to come in here and make the maximum amount of capital off of our natural resource and the local environment, this is something that we all care about. Everyone cares about protecting the aquifer, protecting our water rights, and we know we're at capacity in peak periods on our wells. There comes a time where we really have to shut down the developers, and it's one thing to vote against that when you get the rest of the council voting against you. But, if we have a nice majority on the council that wants to change and halt this process, we need reliable commitment to this, the resistance to build everywhere in the most dense way possible and go vertical, which we start to see happening all around Coeur d'Alene now. And so I think that's the answer to the problem. We need to slow that down so that the infrastructure can catch up. And, that's the surface of the problem. I mean, that's the substance of the problem.
Okay, thank you, Clark. And I haven't pointed out earlier, Clark is running for seat 3. Next, we will have Christy Wood, who is the incumbent running for seat 1. Christy.
Thank you. Traffic, just sitting in traffic is annoying, but it's really not the biggest issue. It's actually the kind of accidents that are occurring now, too. Back when I was patrolling the streets, it was rare to see a rollover accident, and you're seeing a lot of that now. And it's not just an issue for Coeur d'Alene. We're connected to all of these other communities, Hayden, Rathdrum, Post Falls. So it's something we all share, and especially on Highway 95. We heard just a few months ago from our chief of police that Highway 95 from I-90 to all the way out to Prairie, it's 7 miles of the most accident-laden roadway in the entire state of Idaho. That is something that city hasn't been able to do anything about because we don't control that roadway. It comes really about of synchronizing those lights. There's been a lot of discussion on that, and we haven't been able to get anywhere with that. But in other areas of the city, we have been able to do some of that. You'll notice, and Councilman English mentioned that we have synchronized the lights as you go down Northwest Boulevard, and it's made a big difference. Those are the kind of things, just really digging down into the issue, that council does. We do it all the time. We talk with our law enforcement experts, and we try to figure out what we can do to make a difference. Growth overall, though, it is going to continue to be something that we have to say no to when it doesn't make any sense. For instance, I did vote no on Coeur. The reason I did that is our comp plan says if you have an impact to an existing neighborhood and negative impact, then you really shouldn't be approving that project. Well, what I've found about the comp plan is that it seems to be up to interpretation for council and staff. And when I go by the letter of the law, other people maybe not. So I do vote no on increased density when it doesn't make any sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. And finally, on this question, we will have Brian Winkler, who's running for seat 1. Brian?
Sure, thanks, Hilo. So when I look at the city planning department and then the planning commission and then the city council, and then the comprehensive plan, they're openly stating we are going to double the population of Coeur d'Alene by the year 2040. And everything they do in their daily jobs is pushing toward that goal. So, I mean, if you're going to double the population, you're going to double traffic and you're going to double congestion. So that's why this is my number one issue for my campaign, is to slow growth. And to do that, I mean, we have to take a few actions right now. I mean, we have this high velocity development cycle, and there's a lot of interest in developing the land as fast as possible. And there's a lot of money to be made off of it. But it doesn't reflect the interests of the people. And just the other day, or last month in August at the planning commission meeting, you had people off of 17th because a builder came in and wanted to put some high density units in there. So the whole neighborhood showed up and protested against it. And unfortunately, that's where we are as a city right now. People are afraid that they're going to, look down, and then the next morning they're going to wake up and have an apartment complex in their backyard. And so, yeah, we have to slow growth. And the way we do that is, we have to make the elected council more involved in the process. We do that by getting them involved early, or just putting the planning and zoning commission and those responsibilities under the council, which is permitted by state law. I think that's totally open for inspection. The second thing is, I think the city staff and I think the council and the planning commission, we should stop talking about growth as if it's inevitable, right? It's like, okay, we're going to double the population of Coeur d'Alene by 2040. Well, I don't think we should be talking that way. I think we should be thinking about it differently, not just accepting it as something, okay, this is going to happen, but rather, yeah, let's take this one step at a time, baby steps, if you've ever seen What About Bob, but yeah, let's take this one step at a time and, just slow things down, and let's get authentic feedback from the community, and let's hear what they have to say about this, and let's preserve the character of our neighborhoods. And then the third thing I'd say is, if we are going to develop, let's keep it local. Let's hire local developers with local capital, having access to local capital. And let's not have, big conglomerates like the Toll Brothers coming in and bossing us around. Let's hire local. Let's have healthy capital markets locally, and let's approach it that way. Thank you.